Welcome back. So here's your third and looks like final news of the day video for now. Looks like there's not anything else that's happening right now, although it could be, and there's a lot of talk. Marc Bergevin, not on the board, but I'm going to start with this. Marc Bergevin, lots of talk going on, has not been able to come up with what he wants, which is a top six forward, somehow in exchange for a package that include the first round draft pick this year. So it looks like right now, Montreal likely drafts at 16. We just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And of course, tomorrow the draft, look for trades before the draft, probably during the draft, and all that other wonderful stuff. And we will see what ends up happening. So, starting out with Arizona, so the Coyotes. This is, of course, Roadrunners jersey, their AHL affiliate. See the AZ right there? So this is a fun jersey I got from the AHL store. So I just got the one from the AHL store that was, I thought, awesome. And I was like, I need an Arizona one. Now they have a third that looks really cool too. That's like a Kachina style, but they didn't have that one for sale. So anyways, Lyubushkin has signed a 1-year extension with the Arizona Coyotes for $1 million. Capobianco has signed a 2-year deal. The cap hit $775,000 over those 2 years. He makes, I think it's $700,000 the first year, $850,000 the second year. And no, there's no deal for Oliver Ekman-Larsson yet. Again, it's all the same thing. It's all basically stuck. And we'll get into why. We'll take a look at it later on in this video. So not in another video. We'll look at it later on in this video. TJ Brodie heading to the market, but there is still discussion going on between he and the Calgary Flames. And he's not ruling out a return to the Flames. I think ideally he would like to be back with the Flames. And I don't think the Flames would mind having him back. They're dealing with losing some of their blue liners. And I think if they have a chance to keep Brodie, I think they'll do it. But it's a matter of doing it at the right cost with the right amount of term. So we'll see what happens with Brodie and what he ends up getting on the free agent market. And if that ends up being with Calgary. Tage Thompson, Buffalo Sabres, has signed a 3-year contract for $1.4 million a year. So this is one of those interesting ones where you had to ask yourself with a new GM, would that GM have faith in Thompson? Could Thompson be one of those guys who maybe is on his way out of town? And the answer is no. Right now, they've signed him 3-year, $1.4 million, and for some reason, they're still asking questions about whether or not Eichel's on the market, and you still have a general manager having to answer this question with, no, Eichel is not on the market, and I could have told anybody that, but because there's so many trade proposal things coming through from fans and from different websites that it's still, you got to ask. And of course the media's playing the role in this as well with the whole Eichel thing, because clicks and all that, and Eichel's name is going to draw a lot of interest. It's the same thing as Laine. Laine, I think, is more on the trade block than Eichel, obviously, but there's nothing concrete out there. So since there's nothing concrete out there revolving around him, just throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks. And so Eichel's not on the block. Thompson's sticking around. And for $1.4 million a year, clearly the general manager feels that Thompson should be a fixture on that fourth line at the minimum this coming year. And we'll see whether or not Thompson fulfills his potential. Now, for Vancouver fans, they're working on a Markstrom contract. They've been having discussions with Markstrom's agent for months. And so they're still working on a potential Markstrom contract. There's nothing imminent. This also puts Tyler Toffoli and any extension he might sign into complete and total uncertainty. And right now, you're so close to free agency, think about it. So you've got this team that you've been with for, say, 3, 4, 5 years, however long, right? And in 4 days, you could get offers from every team. Now, to turn around and say, well, I'd like to sign and stay here, but I kind of want to see what all the other offers are. It's not really that outside of the realm of what anybody would do in that situation. There are certainly players who are willing to sign and play somewhere because they enjoy it. Look at Spezza signing for the league minimum to stay in Toronto as an example. He might have got a little bit more money somewhere else, but he says, I want to stay in Toronto. But in the case of a guy like Markstrom, I can totally understand if he's sitting here on a Monday night and saying, well, yeah, I could sign a 5-year, 3-year, however long extension with Vancouver, or I could see what other teams are offering and what other options I might have. So I think the closer you get to Friday, the harder it is to make a deal to get an extension done. And I think that's going to be the case with Toffoli, who's going to have teams vying for his services, and definitely the case with Markstrom. And then the other problem is the whole OEL. Are they going to get OEL? Well, again, you don't have the cap space to make the deal if you're Vancouver, because you have to look to next year. And if you're Arizona, you can't afford to take a bunch of money back, because part of the reason that OEL would be on the market is because he gets paid a ton of money and you're trying to free up cap space yourself. So it is one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't situations, and I really can't see a way forward for Vancouver. That being said, it could happen. We'll see. But the buyouts option is there as well. I'm not sure who you buy out. And I think if Vancouver does go through with a buyout, I think it's going to be somebody we're not talking about. And I think it's going to be Jim Benning getting creative if they decide to go with a buyout. But I don't think they worry about buyouts unless they already know they're getting OEL. Unless they already know that they're trying to re-sign and they're going to re-sign Toffoli. I don't think they worry about buyouts just yet. But we're not up to the deadline for buyouts. That's on the 7th. You have to see. They have to put them on waivers 2 days from now in order to do the buyout on Thursday, which is the day before free agency. So that's the actual deadline for starting the process with buyouts. We'll see what they do. The Oilers are working on Ryan Nugent-Hopkins extension, and Ken Holland is very vocal about wanting to keep him around, and why not? Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, very useful player for them. At the time he signed that contract, there were some who might have thought it was a little too high, maybe it was a little too long of a contract, but he's ended up being very good value the last couple of years especially, and I would be very surprised if they don't work something out. Both the player and the team seem to want to make this work. That is to their advantage. NHL 21 has continued to make headlines today. They released their top 10 goaltenders, I think it was yesterday, and I mean, there were a couple of surprises, but nothing really too surprising. I was a bit surprised to see Gibson at the number 2 overall spot. I'm not going to disagree with that, but I understand why some people would. Their top 10 defensemen, though, a little bit. Victor Hedman, Carlson, those are your top 2, both 91s overall. And then you've got, or 92s overall, I think, because I think Doughty's a 91. And that's where people have an issue. Doughty at 3, Yossi at 4, then Pietrangelo at 5, Erik Karlsson at 6, Shea Weber, Chris Letang, Brent Burns, and Zach Werenski. And this is where all the arguing starts. When I get this game, I will be doing some work on the rankings for the players, the ratings. And it's not just going to be the overalls. When it comes to the prospects, I'll also be changing their potential, because in NHL games through EA, very often the potentials of some of these kids are they're abysmal. And they're players that you don't bother keeping them because there's no potential. And there's not anything you can do to make their potential better. One thing that I've argued for ages is if I draft a player and their potential is, say, bottom 6. It's a bottom 6 potential. So I should have, as the GM, an option to put them into, like a Gary Roberts type program where they can work on skating, they can work on shooting, they can work on something in their game. And coming out of that program, suddenly their potential, maybe it says top 9 forward instead of bottom 6. Maybe it says top 6 forward if you put them through enough training and if they adapt to it well enough. But the game doesn't really work that way. So you get guys with low potential, you get guys where their ratings are off, and it's weird because you'll see guys that don't have any trade value at all that should, and then players have a ton of trade value that really shouldn't. So, this is something I'll be working on when I get the game. There'll be live streams on the channel here on that as well. And when I saw these ratings, the first thing I said, I just put on Twitter, so I'm going to have some work to do. Because again, I would argue that Doughty is still an excellent defenseman. I'm not saying he's not. But I would not put him as the number 3 defenseman in the NHL based on the play over the last year. I would not have Erik Karlsson there. He has not been healthy. I don't know if I'd have Weber there. It depends on which part of the year you're looking at with Weber. Letang I would not have in the top 10. Based on this past year, I don't think I'd have Burns in the top 10. I'm fine with the others, but again, that's about half of them. So we'll see how much work I have to do. There have been times where I've spent days working on it. Now, obviously, with the channel and the amount of output that I have on the channel, I don't have that kind of time. So part of the reason that I don't play the NHL games much at all outside of live streams, I just don't have the time for that. And I used to obsess on every single player's ranking, and this year I'm going to try to do that because we don't know when the next NHL season is going to start. So I'm going to take this very seriously right out of the gate and assume we're not going to get a roster update for a while. So the rosters they give us, that's what they give us, and then I'll probably have to create some players to put into the game as well. But yeah, that's the top 10. The interesting thing too is that there were a lot of other teams that were retweeting that out and mentioning players that were missing. Whether it's Heiskanen, whether it's Seth Jones. You could argue Makar from Colorado. You could argue Quinn Hughes out of Vancouver. You could argue a number of guys who, and again, if you're going to say, well, after 1 year they don't belong in the top 10, that's fine. But I would also argue there's some of these guys who, based on the last 2 years of work, you may not want to have in the top 10. But again, that's a debate for another time. And we'll get into that when I get the game and I start messing around with it. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding this third news video of the day. And tomorrow is the draft. So remember, we will be conducting the live stream at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, which is a half an hour before the draft technically gets started. And I say technically because even though they're doing it virtually, I would imagine there's going to be some pomp and circumstance at the start. And the actual number 1 draft pick probably happens about 4:15 my time, which is 7:15 Eastern. Which, if you're in Europe, proves that the NHL, in reality, doesn't really feel you guys need sleep. So I don't know how long this draft's going to take. I don't know if it's going to be like the NFL draft where there's kind of some stupid long pauses in between picks. I'm hoping there isn't. But we'll see. And I'll be here to report on that. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.